Have you ever felt like there's something wrong with you? Really, I'm serious. I meet women all the time that say that exact same thing, and I know I have. And it took some serious magic to begin to let that go. I have met so many women over the years who have felt this exact way, and I'm going to give you 4 secrets that I found to stop feeling like something is wrong with you or me. A flower does not think of competing with the flower next to it. It just blooms. Zen Shen says. Welcome back to my enchanting realm as the Queen of Magic, where you are the Queen of Magic and I am the Queen of Magic and all women are the Queen of Magic. And so today I want to use a little whimsy to explore and take an adventure of self-discovery and belonging. I remember being a kid in school and literally my knees were knocking. My stomach was shaking and I was having probably what was considered a panic attack if I had to go to the front of the room of the class just to sharpen my pencil. I would walk through a supermarket as I got older and feel like something was wrong with me. But not only that, everybody in the store must be looking at me and seeing that. Was I too fat? Was I too young? Was I too serious? Was I too emotional? Was I too smart? Too normal? Too abnormal? Too sexual? Too something? This is so fascinating how we can do this in our little brains and our minds. And this spilled over into adulthood. I thought, well, maybe I'll grow out of it. But God forbid I would be in a group of women. We as women have not been taught to support each other enough. But I'd be in a group of women and I perceived that they were judging me for any and all of those things I just shared. I was too this, I was too that. And I never felt that I belonged, even though I had no reason to believe that. None. It was all here. But then there were times that I felt like something was wrong with them, because that was easier. These other women, I'd be in a group of women at a women's conference or something, or a girls' night out, or a bachelorette party. And then the screeching of people being drunk, or the women screeching, we can get in our very high-pitched voices and loud laughter, and then they'd start chattering about makeup or nonsensical things such as Botox. I just thought, no thanks. But I wanted so badly to belong, but I didn't see a place for myself. I felt literally that I was on an island by myself. I wasn't doing this whole woman thing right. I thought more that I was more of a man than I was of a woman. And I found it easier to hang with the guys. I really did. But now I have learned that nothing is wrong with me or you. And hanging out with a group of women makes me feel so warm and fuzzy inside. Now I give retreats for women. So go figure. Go figure. What shifted? First, I stopped comparing myself to others. I stopped comparing myself to others. Marie Forleo calls it compare schlager. So she's named it off that schlager drink, I think. I love this because it takes the seriousness out of comparing. So instead of saying stop comparing yourself, just tell yourself stop drinking that compare schlager. What? And so for those of you, I've never had Goldschlager, but apparently it's a cinnamon, I guess a liqueur that has gold flecks in it. But it supposedly looks like it's special, which this comparison thing that we do looks special or feels special, but it's not. And it's very deceiving. But here's the thing is if you can just imagine that every time you're comparing yourself, you're drinking compare schlager. You're drinking that Goldschlager, which if you've ever had it, it just does that to you. So stop drinking the compare schlager. And as soon as I started embracing my uniqueness, right? Because that's what you do when you stop comparing. All those twos that I mentioned earlier are usually this product of that ever so insidious trap of comparison. So just by virtue of the fact you stop drinking the compare schlager and you begin to see how special and wonderful you are, you get out of that trap. Because we get stuck in that negative thought loop. It just goes around and around and around and around. Then when we're comparing, we're smothered by jealousy or anxiety and self-criticism, which all of that ultimately causes a fissure of separation between us, ourselves, and others. So that's really what it is it's seeing how we're separate instead of knowing that we're all one of the divine. So you see, my dear friends, these twos, all those, we're to this, we're to that we experience, whether it's feeling too small, too insignificant, too inadequate, they're just like gentle whispers from our inner selves. And they are not true. They are stories. But it's such a natural human tendency to compare ourselves to others. And it's really so essential to recognize that the harm it causes with your soul, with your truth, with your authentic self is beyond measure. And this trap so often leads us into a negative thought loop. Because I don't know about you, but once I get into that negative thought loop, it's like a hamster on a wheel. I just keep going around and around and around in a circle. And until you snap yourself out of it and change your state, you find yourselves drowning in all of these things. All of these things like jealousy, anxiety, and self-criticism. Stop drinking the Comparschlager. Because if we use other people and external standards as our barometer of who we are, our true self, we're always going to find ourselves being to something, which makes for a very disruptive and tumultuous internal experience. And my goodness, I don't know about you, but I've wasted a lot of time on that hamster wheel, and it is not time that I can get back, and it's never been productive. And so in all of those years that I was feeling insecure and ungrounded in who I am, I could have been saying, yes, I'm the queen of magic. It took me a little while to get here. But it means I often acted as a chameleon to other people because I saw that what they had was what I wanted instead of just knowing that I could create it. And it changed my energy based on who I was around or I could fit in with. And trust me when I say that Comparschlager, it's not in my cupboard anymore. But I don't have to do that anymore. And I have learned that there is no right way to be me, to be a woman, to be a human, right? We just are so unique and special and individualized in our own way, in our own personalities, in our desires and our fears and our preferences and the uniqueness of everything that makes us us. So what we want to do is begin to explore, to be curious about what that is, because the world is so much more interesting because you and I are in it, and we're beautiful and we're magical and we're wonderful. Because listen, if you were to picture this, a world where comparisons vanish like morning mist, what? How cool would that be? Because in the past, I often felt like a wandering star amidst a galaxy of women that I was like, I'm not like any of them. And then I would say that was wrong, or I was wrong, or there was something wrong with me. But if we were in this galaxy with all these women that were radiating their own light and not comparing each other to each other, oh my goodness, that word to this or to that, boom, out of the door. But here's the secret spell. Stop drinking the Comparschlager. Because all of that stuff that gets trapped in your head, it's that ego being that trickster. I've done a video on ego, so check that out. But this trap can bind you in a never-ending spiral of self-doubt, and you do not need that. Number one, to begin to feel like there's nothing wrong with you. Just right here and right now, I want you to declare that you're a sparkling gem. You're unique and beautiful in your own way. What makes you unique and beautiful in this cosmic tapestry of all the planets and all the stars and all the universes? Because there's only one you. There's only one you. So share it with the world. The second secret is I went from judgment to curiosity. I shifted away from judging things, and I grew up that way. So believe me when I say I got it honestly from my upbringing. But when you begin to look at things from a curious perspective instead of a judgmental perspective, things begin to shift in a magical way. And my young adult years, I was very, 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 can I say very judgmental? Because I learned with my brothers and sisters, we would sit around at the mall when they had malls that were thriving. We would sit at the mall and watch people buy, and we would judge them for what I don't know. But I went from thinking that something was wrong with me to thinking that I was better than all of the rest of the world, especially other women, because at the end of the day, it's so much easier to try to project outwards through judgment than it is about curiosity. And then I would think if I were in events with women that I talk too much or they talk too much or little surface things that people do, right? My ego always created stories. My ego loves. We all have a great ego. If we were to take our ego stories and start writing them and make movies out of them, we would never need, writers. We would never need Hollywood writers. But what that does is it causes separateness of wanting to ponder life in a different way. So I'd sit around and judge because I was thinking about existential and very spiritual matters, and I wanted to talk about emotions. And there was, I would be in a group of women who were just having a good time. And they would gossip, or they would laugh too loudly, and they would talk about makeup, and they would talk about boys. But here's the thing is, everybody is their own individual expression of the one. Anytime you find yourself judging anything, whether it's a surface level judging, or the way they vote, or who they like, or who they hang around with, those things will keep you stuck and separate. And so instead of being curious, and we judge, we only alienate ourselves. So begin to be curious about why do people do what they do? Why do women spend so much time discussing our weight, right? Why do we spend so much time discussing clothing or waxing habits or skincare? Well, maybe it's because we have force-fed the belief that we're inadequate. So the press, the marketing engines that are out there have told us, and we believe it now, that we're inadequate the way we are. We're told that we have to buy this or that if we want to be beautiful. We're told we have to be thin if we want to be loved. So it's no wonder we spend so much time thinking and talking about matters of physical appearance. And any conversation that you judge, or any person that you judge, instead of judging it, begin to look at being curious why someone believes a certain way. And when you switch from judgment to curiosity, I realized that amazing discussions begin to transform. And they're not surface. Maybe they begin surface, or you look at it as surface, but they're reflective of some deep desires to belong. Because at the end of the day, every single woman, every single man, every single child wants to belong. They want to be loved, and they want to be accepted. So instead of allowing comparison to create a rift between us and all those around us, we can choose a different path. We can choose compassion and empathy and understanding. And when we look at others, let's see their journeys, their struggles, their victories, and celebrate their uniqueness. So imagine all the things that you've judged in the last 48 hours, and how, if you looked at it from curiosity, how you could celebrate its uniqueness without it diminishing your own. Because what happens is when we judge, we think that somehow we're going to lose a part of ourselves, which is absolutely not true. So secret number 3 is dethrone your ego. You have a throne that is meant for a queen, and you are letting your ego take up space on that throne. So when I dethroned my ego, which, believe me, it comes back in full force so many times because it's such a storyteller, but it began to believe it was the queen. Really. I began to see and hear my ego speaking to me as if it was the queen, and it simply is not. And all of the stories that it tells me, I have to constantly be on guard for what is going on with that ego and all of the stories that it's telling me, because I have to dethrone it on a daily basis. You probably will have to too. My ego told me that I was the only woman that felt like othered. Right? That there's nobody else out there like me. Well, not from the unique perspective, though, that there was something wrong with me perspective. That I'm unique, but I'm feeling like I didn't belong. So how does that work if you really truly believe that we are all part of the one? But my ego would say that you're special in some ways because I wanted to have deeper conversations right? When I was judging people, that's BS. I was just separating myself because it was easier and more comfortable than trying to be part of the one and feel like somehow I didn't belong. Now I've learned that I was in no way unique in feeling like I didn't belong, right? Oh my goodness. When you find out that other women feel just like you, it's like a revelation. I'm not feeling like this all by myself. And people yearn to peel back the layers. They want it. They want to connect on this emotional, vulnerable level with one another in a deep, rich way. But we've never been taught to do that. So we find ourselves stuck in a performative role, right? So you have all these roles, all these masks that you put on, and you're trying to show up how society has told you to show up through all of your upbringing, your background, your experiences. And the problem is that's not the authentic you. So many of us have erected walls around our hearts and our minds and our bodies to protect this beautiful, vulnerable, raw, sensitive parts of us. But they don't need to be protected. They need to be let out because that's what draws in the magnetism of people that see our truth and want to be part of our lives. Instead of trying to protect the parts of us that we've learned weren't safe to express or were unlikable, or that's what our ego told us, that story, we want to begin to let others in. So when I began to look at my ego as a mischievous sprite, like going through the woods, a little sprite trying to cause trouble, and it would whisper in my ear those fairy tales, literally fairy tales, not the good fairy tales, the Grimm's fairy tales of you're so special but you don't belong. I was quick to remember that the fairy tale that it was whispering was shared by so many other women. They've known it, they feel it, and it's not the truth. And the ego is a really clever trickster, I promise you. And you believe it. I fall into that trap so often, but now I'm like, no, that's my ego story again. And in the past, it had me dancing, like a tap dance of discordant upset because I was believing it. And it's only a story. It's not even what's happening in reality. It's just the story about what I believe reality is going to show up as. So when I began to embrace the idea that we are all wanting to connect on a deeper level, and shed those masks we wear because of our belief of what society wants us to do, the walls come down. Walls come tumbling down. Absolutely. Dethrone your ego. It feels a little mutinous in the beginning, I assure you, but it's so freeing. So freeing. So secret number 4 is embrace the wisdom within you. Because if you embrace what you know, your intuition, you have to get quiet, you have to meditate, you have to get into altered states. You can't be it in your beta mind. And I'll do a video on states of your mind. But the thing is that when you start listening to this amazing sage advice that comes from philosophers and religious leaders and lay people across centuries, they started heeding their own inner wisdom. And how that is summed up is you have everything you need within you always. Always, always, always. It's always right here. The answer is right here. So how do you tap into it? I started to deepen my connection to myself, knowing that the problem I was experiencing, as we're talking about on this video, namely the feeling of being othered, I'm not like others, and not belonging, could only be solved by first looking inward, looking at the true, authentic self of who I am, which you have your own inward journey. It's deepened my connection to myself through dance, breath work, journaling, meditating, playing. Playing is a really important ingredient. And as I do those things, and I've shared this with so many women over so many decades, but you start to uncover who you are, who you want to be, versus trying to fit into a mold of what you think a woman of your nature, stature, whatever, is supposed to be. Or even a human is supposed to be. When you seek that wisdom from all of these places, there's so much wisdom out there that's been left for us to tap into. You stumble onto a timeless truth, and that is everything we need is in us. And as you go deeper, this is the beauty of it. The deeper you go into yourself, you find these little hidden chambers in your soul. Their doors have been closed for so long because you've kept them closed. But you deepen your connections in such magical ways when you begin to explore your true self, instead of fitting into a mold that you've concluded is what you need to do. So my beautiful queens, remember this. You are not to anything. You are a magnificent blend of magic, stardust, and dreams. Say that with me. I'm a magnificent blend of magic, stardust, and dreams. The whispers of you're not enough, you're too this or you're too out, to that, are echoes of other people's insecurities. And your quest to belong is shared by so many because we're all connected and we're all on the same path, longing for the same connection. I promise you, as you begin to express your true self, you become a beacon of light because people want to be around that. They love authenticity. And we are all these big energy vortexes, and we're pulling in all of that energy that we're putting out there, which is our authentic self and our vulnerability. And as you do that, you become a guide for others to follow. So here's to less judgment, more curiosity, less separateness, more connectedness, less fear, more love. And on my journey of releasing comparison and your journey of stopping to drink that Comparschlager, ignite that curiosity, dethrone your ego, and move inward to that place that your heart is. You are not to anything. You are amazing, unique, and special. And when you hear people say, you're to this or you're to that, just know that that's just a reflection of their insecurities. And you are beautiful and wonderful. You can support them through this process as well. If you want to know more about what I teach at my retreats, there's a link right here on the screen, and there's a link in the body below where I will send you a free download of my money mastery meditation that if you listen to this for 30 days, once a day, your whole world is going to transform when it comes to money, wealth, and abundance. And if you want to explore a discovery call with me, there's a link in the first comments below of how to do that. And as I always say, y'all come back now. You hear?